Bailey Chongqing took out his satellite phone and sent Zhang Yi a file containing 2 separate documents. The first file was not very important. It was simply the personal information of the members of the Tengu team. As the captain, Zhang Yi needs to understand the abilities of his team members before he can command them reasonably. Bailey Chongqing stated casually, "As for our Black Robe Squad, we have no objection to you being the captain, but the God Squad needs you to show some authority. Since Deng Shentong had a very high prestige, they became arrogant. So they may be unwilling to accept the management of you, a foreigner from the outer city." Hearing this, Zhang Yi turned to him with a strange look. If the people of the Celestial God team really doesn't accept his management, then that's their problem. And about educating them, they just have to wait and see how they respond. Anyway, what about the other information? Bailey Chongqing waved off his captain's strange look and replied that the second file was sent to the headquarters by Deng Shentong before his death, and it happens to contain the core secrets about Eclipse Moon. In other words, these information were exchanged for Deng Shentong's life. Zhang Yi's face became a little more solemn. He really knew nothing about Fengguangyuanjin, the leader of Eclipse Moon. His abilities, characteristics, and strength were all a mystery to him. And although Deng Shentong lost to him with his strength, he would definitely be able to force Fengguangyuanjin to reveal enough trump cards. This information was extremely critical. Zhang Yi took out a laptop from his alternate space and stated calmly, "Let's watch it on a computer, it's more convenient." He also called Yang Xinxin over to the living room. He wants to show her the file so she can help them analyze it. Yang Xinxin agreed to Zhang Yi's request and hurried over in a flash, hugging her bodyguard who happens to be sleeping peacefully. "Big brother Zhang, what file do you want me to see?" Zhang Yi waved at her to come take a seat so they can watch the video together. The three sat together on the sofa with a serious look and played the video. However, the earlier footage of the video turned out to be blank. This is because Deng Shentong used his ability to distort the light, causing any recording device to be unable to capture accurate images. Only sound could be heard. But according to the few dialogues between the two, some information were obtained. The three clearly heard Fengguangyuanjin admitting his ability to be rebirthed after any death, and Deng Shentong's smug comment about just killing him a few more times. Immortality? This is indeed a very troublesome ability. Zhang Yi frowned slightly. How can they deal with a person who can't be killed? Although Zhang Yi doesn't believe that there are really people who can't die. Every time Fengguangyuanjin regenerates, he must consume superpowers or other things, right? And if they can find out the limit of his rebirth, they should be able to deal with him quickly. And from the sound of the battle, it can be heard that he was not much inferior to Deng Shentong in close combat. After a long time, the white light that enveloped everything slowly disappeared, and what was displayed on the screen was an endless red flame. Zhang Yi saw Deng Shentong in pain and surrounded by these flames. He also saw the horrible figure wrapped in flames as the leader of the Eclipse group. Fengguangyuanjin grinned and approached Deng Shentong with the confidence of a victor. Even so, Deng Shentong still did not lose the ability to resist. The white light blessed by the holy body competed with the phoenix flames, and he was also fighting fiercely with Fengguangyuanjin. The group listened to Deng Shentong's monologue and analysis, contemplating on how he shouldn't lose. He was obviously stronger than Fengguangyuanjin despite his abnormal ability. Was he really immortal? No, this is absolutely impossible. There is no carbon-based organism in this world that cannot be killed. There must be something I haven't discovered yet. Oh, so that's how it is. I understand. I understand everything now. There is a traitor inside Blizzard City. Someone leaked my ability. When Zhang Yi heard this from Deng Shentong, he couldn't help but tighten his grip on the cup. His sword eyebrows rose involuntarily, and his suspicion was infinitely magnified. Inside Blizzard City, there was actually a national-level traitor. Yang Xinxin stared at the screen with a faint gaze, but her expression was unusually calm. Zhang Yi knew that she was definitely thinking frantically about this matter. Bailey Chongqing, on the other hand, looked normal, and it's obvious that this was not the first time he had watched this video. Zhang Yi silently took a sip of his tea, knowing full well that the top leaders of Blizzard City must have seen the video so many times, especially Zhu Zhang and Deng Yuanhua, and they both strongly suspect that there is a traitor in Blizzard City. So that's one of the reasons they actively recommended Zhang Yi to be the captain of the Tengu team. Or are they planning to use him to lure out the traitor? No! Zhang Yi realized that there was no point in guessing like a headless fly. As an outsider, he didn't know the internal affairs of Blizzard City. He didn't even know about the power struggles of several major factions in the city either, so he might as well try his best to avoid being involved. Zhang Yi quickly retracted his thoughts and continued to watch the video. In the video, Deng Shentong was obviously shaky and couldn't hold on. Facing Fengguangyu and Jin, who could be resurrected from the dead, Deng Shentong had no way to beat this mutant in that moment. But Fengguangyu and Jin seemed to know his abilities and even his attack methods very well. In the end, Deng Shentong lost the strength to support his body and fell into the ruins. His weak voice stammers a little as he tries to get some details across. Listen, I know his abilities. He can see through the future and see how I attack. Remember this and be careful about it. The law of cause and effect must be used to deal with him. In the footage, a huge flaming fist hit his face. Let Zhang Yi. Deng Shentong left these 3 words hanging in the air before the entire footage goes completely blank. Then ends. Bailey Chongqing explained that Deng Shentong made the decision to blow himself up at that moment. So they truly didn't know what his last statement was all about. And about blowing himself up, every captain-level figure is required to have this bomb if they chose to self-destruct or die in the custody of the enemy. Deng Shentong's video data ended there. Zhang Yi held his chin and carefully analyzed what he'd learned so far. The latter part of the video left by Deng Shentong revealed too much information. And it seems Fengguangyu and Jin can see through Deng Shentong's future, meaning it's possible that he could see through his opponent's future. Although Zhang Yi hadn't figured out how this cheat ability works, but combining it with the immortal attribute, the outcome was simply despairing. And his last incomplete sentence about him had forcefully pushed him in front of the high-level officials of Blizzard City. Anyway, about the law of cause and effect, Zhang Yi didn't fully understand this aspect about himself as well. Could it be that he was reincarnated because he awakened a special co-ability that he had not yet discovered? And if that's the case, should he go to the Deng group and ask them to help him find it? At this time, Bailey Chongqing's voice echoed in his ears. What do you think after watching this? Zhang Yi turned his head to look at him and smiled faintly. I have so many ideas. However, I didn't expect the opponent to be so troublesome. Bailey Chongqing then questioned curiously. Deng Shentong mentioned at the end that you can deal with Fengguangyu and Jin. Zhang Yi simply replied that Deng Shentong didn't finish his statement. So Bailey Chongqing shouldn't speculate. Well, 5 people in Eclipse Moon were killed, 4 of whom died in your hands. Now, it is basically certain that the other side has a mutant who can predict the future. If you didn't affect the cause and effect, how could you have killed 4 of them? Hearing this, Zhang Yi didn't get ahead of himself and pointed out that that alone wasn't enough. Even if he'd managed to kill 4 people before, how can they win against someone who can't be killed? How is he going to kill someone who can be reborn continuously? Bailey Chongqing then suggested the possibility of capturing Fengguangyu and Jin inside Zhang Yi's alternate space and sealing him there. Zhang Yi explained calmly, I'm afraid that won't work. The alternate dimension does not have the ability to actively collect living things. It is driven by thoughts, and my thoughts will only be effective against dead things. As for living people, unless they are willing to enter my alternate space, they cannot be forcibly collected. Bailey Chongqing slapped his thigh and stated in excitement when he heard this explanation. He believes their job was still easy. They will just break Fengguangyu and Jin into pieces, and then throw him into the alternate dimension. That should be enough, right? Zhang Yi looked at Bailey Chongqing deeply. Are you speaking human language? Do you think I'm Deng Shentong? Deng Shentong can kill Fengguangyu and Jin dozens of times, because he has an extremely powerful attack power. But Zhang Yi has the complete opposite, which was extremely good defense. It's difficult for him to kill Fengguangyu and Jin even for once. Not to mention Fengguangyu and Jin's ability to predict the opponent's actions. It's hard to say whether it will work on Zhang Yi. As the two were discussing this matter, Yang Xinxin suddenly spoke up and shared her thoughts as they ponder. I remember that when Deng Shentong and Fengguangyu and Jin started fighting, the witch Takeuchi Mayumi was also present. Zhang Yi and Bailey Chongqing looked at her. That's right, so what? Are you trying to say that she had an influence on the outcome of the battle? Fengguangyu and Jin's abilities are special. Immortal regeneration, phoenix flames, and super strong physique. And according to our understanding of superpowers, he can't have time-related abilities at the same time. So I guess this ability was given to him by Mayumi Takeuchi. Yang Xinxin raised 3 of her right fingers and continued. In other words, as long as Mayumi Takeuchi is killed first, Fengguangyu and Jin will lose at least 30% of his combat effectiveness. This suggestion instantly opened up new ideas for Zhang Yi. It is indeed a possibility with a very high probability. The group discussed this matter and obtained a lot of information from the images left by Deng Shentong. Bailey Chongqing smiled and stated calmly, in fact, you don't need to put too much pressure on yourself. The core significance of your action this time is to block the predictive ability of the Eclipse Moon Priestess. As for dealing with Fengguangyu and Jin, there are more suitable candidates than you. Zhang Yi's eyes condensed. You mean Gao Changkong? Bailey Chongqing nodded without hesitation. Gao Changkong's ability is actually very suitable for dealing with Fengguangyu and Jin. Of course, I can't tell you what his ability is now, but if my guess is correct, he will be the leader of this operation. And you will act more in coordination with him, just like before. Bailey Chongqing was Gao Changkong's friend and also his fan. Coupled with his understanding of Gao Changkong's abilities and his partial understanding of Zhang Yi's abilities, he firmly believes that the headquarters will use Gao Changkong as the leader to carry out the next mission to eliminate Eclipse Moon. Zhang Yi looked dim and did not refute Bailey Chongqing's words. Theoretically speaking, there is nothing wrong with what Bailey Chongqing said. He is just a soldier after all, and he doesn't understand what power struggle was. People like him just have to do things according to the requirements of their superiors. Unlike Zhang Yi, who have to plan 3 steps before taking a step. It's so tiring. Anyway, although Gao Changkong does have better combat qualities and command capabilities than Zhang Yi, his identity destined him to be unable to be the leader of this operation. Being too successful and outshining the master is the biggest taboo for subordinates throughout history. To put it bluntly, even if Gao Changkong made the greatest contribution at this time, Blizzard City would focus on promoting Zhang Yi's achievements instead of him. Zhang Yi ended the discussion and was about to dismiss Bailey Chongqing when an idea struck him like a thunderclap. By the way, he said excitedly, I am now the captain of the Tengu squad, so I can receive captain-level equipment and weapons, right? He pointed at Yang Xinxin and continued, I have 3 helpers with me, and they will also be incorporated into the Tengu squad for the time being. I have already told Zhu Zhang about this, so they need to receive equipment. Bailey Chongqing nodded slightly. That's no problem. Just let me know what equipment you need and I'll ask someone to send it over later. The smile on Zhang Yi's face suddenly turned devious. No, let's go by ourselves. After all, I need a lot of weapons and equipment. Bailey Chongqing stared at Zhang Yi with a strange smile and seemed to guess what this unscrupulous guy was going to do. He just hopes Zhu Zhang can take it. And speaking of the devil, not long after, Zhu Zhang, who was still working in his office, received an urgent call from the quartermaster. And as expected, Zhang Yi was using his spatial abilities to collect a large number of weapons. Apparently, the quantity was beyond what the quartermaster can exaggerate. As he spoke, he couldn't help but turn his head to look at Zhang Yi, who was busy collecting a lot of goods into his alternate space. After being a quartermaster for so many years, this was the first time he encountered such a way of receiving supplies. He pleaded with Zhu Zhang that it seems that the warehouse was in urgent need of weapons refill. Zhu Zhang thought about it and shook his head with a smile. This kid really has the spirit of, if you don't take advantage of an opportunity, then you are a bastard. Forget it, just give him as many as he needs. Anyway, they are just ordinary hot weapons. After the end of the world, the power of these weapons has been greatly weakened, and they are not difficult to manufacture. The moment Zhu Zhang gave his approval, the quartermaster started suggesting other heavy artilleries. Zhang Yi can go take a look at some of the heavy machine guns they have in the back. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up at the thought of this. Really, he exclaimed, then I will take it all. A while later, Zhang Yi returned to the villa in Area A after his free shopping spree. As he laid in bed leisurely, Zhang Yi examines the large amount of weapons and equipment with satisfaction. Later, Zhu Zhang will formally form the Tengu squad and notify all places of the appointment of Zhang Yi as the captain. Zhang Yi doesn't care about these things. The false reputation of Blizzard City itself was not something he valued. However, he didn't know the current situation concerning Liangyu and was a bit worried. Although rationally, he understood that the Deng family would not do anything to her at this time, but his long-standing habit of being cautious made him uneasy and always operate under a sense of crisis. Coincidentally, Liangyu called Zhang Yi in that very moment. Zhang Yi quickly answered the call. Liangyu, how are you now? Do you feel anything unusual? On the other end of the phone, Liangyu was wearing her usual outfit, but was surrounded by a dozen staff members wearing white protective clothing. Also, just behind her was a huge white lab cabin. The staff were prepared for the final work. Liangyu felt the worry in Zhang Yi's tone and was secretly pleased. The preliminary preparations have been completed. Next, I will enter the lab cabin they prepared for me. The experiment will last for 3 days before I can come out. I won't be able to contact you during this time. Zhang Yi was silent for a moment at the other end of the line, wanting to say something like, take care, but he felt it was not appropriate. After holding it in for a long time, he said, I'll wait for you to come back. Liangyu's smile immediately deepened. Okay. After the two of them had a simple conversation, Liangyu handed the phone to a female staff member, who sealed it and put it away. Then a male staff member asked and gestured for Liangyu to lie down in the lab cabin. Liangyu nodded slightly and did as she was told. Outside the laboratory on the second floor, Deng Yuanbua, Lian Chang and the person in charge of the laboratory were watching this scene. The person in charge asked Deng Yuanbo respectfully, "Chairman, do we really have to follow the A-level source supply? That level of experiment consumes a lot of our energy, which is second only to the training of the young master." Deng Yuanbo narrowed his eyes and replied sharply, "Just do as I say. In business, the initial investment must be large in order to have a steady stream of rich returns in the future. We can't lose this time against Eclipse Moon. And I also want to take this opportunity to find out the traitor in Blizzard City." Deng Yuanbo's eyes flashed with a sharp look. The more talented a mutant was, the greater the consumption of improving that mutant's strength will be, including the energy loss in the middle. It is no exaggeration to say that the resources consumed to improve the ability of a mutant of Liang Yu's level can even create 10 mutants at the level of the investigation team. This is the price of forcing growth. If it is not a true genius, being forcibly improved in this way will only overdraw its potential. But Deng Yuanbo was not worried at all. He knew Liang Yu's will and body had been tempered by thousands of hammers. The very next day, inside Zhang Yi's villa in Area A, he invited Yang Xinxin to an early breakfast. This was mainly to pick her brain. Obviously, Feng Guangyuanjin was a very difficult opponent to deal with. At the same time, he had an immortal body, a super melee ability, and the ability of a witch who could see the future. Putting these conditions together, it was so strong that it was suffocating. However, as long as the ability exists, there must be a way to deal with him. Fortunately, Eclipse Moon is in a state of rest now, so they still have some time to prepare. Xinxin, the Eclipse group has disappeared for almost a week since the battle in Jiangning City. Can you guess what the Eclipse group is doing now? Yang Xinxin replied leisurely, 5 of them died in the last battle. Although from the result, they won a miserable victory and the Jiangnan region failed. But from the perspective of the strength of both sides, they may not have won this duel. The Jiangnan region has a deep foundation. The defeat of the God Squadron has other forces to mobilize. But Eclipse Moon can hardly get the troops to make up for it. So, she looked at Zhang Yi, her eyes flashing like dark stars. I guess they will definitely bring helpers when they come next time. Helpers? Will they be their companions from Neon? Although from the intelligence, Eclipse Moon belongs to the structure of the elite team and has no other companions. But as a landing faction, there must be other people in Neon who have the same idea as them. Seeing that Eclipse Moon has set off a huge wave in the Jiangnan region, maybe someone is tempted to follow them and try to get a piece of the pie. Yang Xinxin explained calmly. It may not necessarily be from Neon, it could be any force. Since the advent of the Ice Age, most areas in the southeast have collapsed. Huashu country had been doing great compared with others. We have the world's top power and can maintain basic needs. But most of the areas in the southeast are small countries. They don't have the ability to deal with the huge natural power of the region, so they collapse. If I'm not mistaken, the southeastern region, including the southern sea area, is already in chaos. Private military organizations are even more numerous. Those vicious people may harass the border. It is also possible that they are moved by the people of Eclipse Moon and can probably be persuaded to invade together. Zhang Yi sighed softly. What I hate most are snakes, insects, rats and ants. They don't seem to have any killing power, but their numbers are huge and they are simply disgusting. The only good news is that those areas are relatively fragmented. First, the population is not large. Even the population of some small countries combined is not as large as that of Tianhai City. Second, their technology is relatively backwards. Therefore, in such areas, the possibility of producing high-level mutants is relatively small. While Zhang Yi was thinking about the next round of plans to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon, undercurrents were surging in Blizzard City, and no one was idle. Everyone knew that as long as they could defeat Eclipse Moon, they would be able to gain great prestige in Blizzard City, thereby increasing the power of their own faction. In response to this, Zhu Zhang convened the entire Blizzard City's senior personnel. The content of the meeting was the plan for the next encirclement and suppression of Eclipse Moon. Zhang Yi informed Yang Xinxin of this and his desire to bring her and Flower along. So the very next day, the conference room of the Combat Command Center was particularly lively, with hundreds of people, including all the prominent people in the entire Blizzard City. Not only Zhu Zhang, Tu Yunlai, and the others, but also some middle and senior management personnel appeared there. This scale of the gathering was extremely rare in the history of Blizzard City. Zhang Yi appeared at the scene with Yang Xinxin and Flower. Zhang Yi found that there are obviously 2 lively circles in the venue. One circle is centered on Tu Yunlai, the head of the combat department. He's always in his military uniform, with half of his face covered. But that seems not to be the case in today's gathering. The other circle was the Samsara team circle headed by Gao Chongkong. Both circles gathered quite a few people, who almost lowered their voices to discuss how to get a share of the spoils from Eclipse Moon. Minister Tu Yunlai, we will fully support you in this operation to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon. Your ability is obviously stronger than those investigation team leaders. If it weren't for this, why would they give you the most important task of defending Blizzard City? It's just that those investigation teams are more likely to become famous. They don't really think that you are weaker than them, right? This encirclement and suppression of Eclipse Moon is of great significance to the Jiangnan region. As a top combat force, you must take part to ensure the victory of the operation. Zhu Zhang must be convinced on this matter. Tu Yunlai was surrounded by several high-level officials of Blizzard City. Among them were the heads of the administrative department and the finance department, all dressed in their impeccable heavy clothes. Tu Yunlai didn't say much, but his expression wasn't his usual icy and cold demeanor either. He politely thanked everyone. As for Gao Changkong, he came with his deputy captain Ji Yushin and Gu Man. Compared with Tu Yunlai, he has more people in his circle. Gao Changkong is usually quite popular, even among the middle and lower classes of Blizzard City. He is friendly and never puts on airs. Captain Gao, you must bear the burden this time. I hope you can fulfill your mission and complete the task successfully. As long as you succeed this time, even if you are of humble origins, you can rely on this merit to rise to the top. With our recommendation, you may not be unable to enter the power core of Blizzard City in the future. Gao Changkong looked embarrassed. Everyone is joking. Gao Changkong, have no other ideas. As a soldier, my duty is to protect the safety and maintain the glory of the Jiangnan region. For this reason, I will ruthlessly wipe out any invading enemy. When he mentioned Eclipse Moon, his eyes were as sharp as a sword. The representatives of the factions around him who supported him were very satisfied with his attitude and nodded with a smile. But at this moment, Gao Changkong saw Zhang Yi not far away and greeted. Captain Zhang, long time no see. Long time no see, Captain Gao. Zhang Yi calmly greeted back.